It's time for our February 2020 plan with me. The theme this month is violets, and I am getting crazy colorful with this, so let's get started. Hi friends, welcome back. My name is Shada, and gosh, this month I have so many fun spreads and pages to share with you, and let's just jump right in. I am using for my 2020 journal a Baron Fig notebook. This is a hardcover notebook that I absolutely love. I highly recommend them. Everybody that I've shown them to in person has just been so impressed with their quality, and especially the paper quality. And so there is a link in the description below if you would like to purchase one. They're also a really good price point, and they're just pretty. So let me open up my notebook here, and you'll see I've done all my 2020 cover page and everything. Now, if you haven't set up your journal for this year yet, you're going to want to take a look at the 2020 setup video, and I really go in depth on all of this stuff. We do a lot of goals pages, future logging, date book, resolutions, all that stuff. And I finally got my YouTube goals spread set up, and then my lifestyle goals. I actually finally released it on Patreon. I got so many requests for a printable version of this page. So patrons, you can now get that. I haven't even had time to fill mine out yet. I know my journal looks unused. I've just been so busy setting it up and filming that I haven't really put my own info into it yet. I am doing my savings tracker, however, and this is also available as a printable on Patreon. It's basically just a pretty coloring page that tracks your savings over the year. So grab that, patrons. We of course did our January cover page last month. This year, my theme is the year in flowers. It's all the birth flowers. So for January, it's carnation, and for February, it's the violet, which is a very pretty flower. And you guys gave me a little bit of flack for not doing my cover page in color last month. So this month you are getting all the color. It's just full out color. I almost had a heart attack. And then this is the weekly layout that I ended up using for January. It's pretty simple and clean and minimal with a little bit of space for doodling, which I tend to enjoy. This is the week that we're in right now. I'm filming quite early. I have kind of half of next week set up. I'll do the flower doodles next week, and then I have one last page in there for the last week of January. And then I did a little doodle spread with my word of the year for 2020. That video all about florals will be out next week. And then I also did a plant tracker, and if you want to see that video, I will link it in the description. Okay, so this is our February cover page. Just before we start, I want to mention that the cover is of course available as a printable on Patreon. So patrons, after today's video, head over to my Patreon site and get your cover page. Okay, so now let's talk about how we are going to lay this page out. I am working today with a Pilot mechanical pencil. I'm going to link something very similar in the description. And as usual, I'll be completing all my drawings and writing with the fine liners from Pigma Micron. I've got a selection there. Also, that will be in the video description if you want to purchase any of these products. They're all available on Amazon. And then I'm using my Faber-Castell brush pens or markers, and they are so wonderful because they do not bleed through. And this month I needed some purple for the violets, and I ended up picking up some Tombow brush pens because I just couldn't find the right purple in the Faber-Castell, so I grabbed a few of those as well. And this design that I worked out starts with a little triangle, and you just want to use the dot grid on your page to make a nice symmetrical upside down triangle there towards the bottom of the page. You can see I marked mine out, and then I'm drawing all these violets and pansies, which are a type of violet, and they sort of are, basically I'm doing them as 4 petals, so I'm keeping the design really simple, and you can see me kind of sketching them in here. I'm drawing larger flowers at the bottom of the triangle and letting them get a little bit smaller as I move up and out, although they're very tightly clustered. And then I'm also surrounding all the flowers with some little leaves, so I'm sketching that in. Now let's talk markers and color palette. For me, being successful with using color in my journal means being very thoughtful about it, and I'm planning the palette ahead of time. I'm also using colors that are a little more muted. Instead of a bright green, I'm using a mossy green and a dark minty green. I'm using a dark purple and a mustard yellow instead of a bright sunshine yellow. So I'm taking a moment to plan this out, and I'm also being thoughtful when I purchase markers. I'm also going to link as many of those markers as I can and write the actual color names in the video description. Now let's get started on coloring in these beautiful violets. I'm going to color most of them kind of like a pansy. So we have this wonderful burst of dark color at the center of the flowers, and you just want to sort of color in one petal at a time. I decided I wanted to darken this one up a bit, so I had put the periwinkle, the really light color, down first, and then I darkened it up. But I'm just working with the palette that I've already planned, and I'm coloring in these flowers. I'm keeping the petals quite separate, and I'm having fun mixing the colors a little and making these wonderful bursts of color where you've got that yellow at the center, or you've got this very dark purple or even black at the center of the flower. And then you'll see I'll come in with that mustard color as well and just put a little dot of that right on center, and it really brings those flowers to life and makes them look like violets. I'd like to take just a moment to thank Skillshare for sponsoring our video today. If you are a fan of this channel and you love the creative pursuits that we do here, I think you'll really get a lot out of the classes on Skillshare. Make 2020 a year where you explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity with Skillshare's online classes. What you find might just surprise and inspire you. Skillshare is an online learning community that offers membership with meaning. With so much to explore, real projects to create, and the support of fellow creatives, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth. They also offer classes designed for real life, so you can move your creative journey forward without putting life on hold. You can learn and grow with short classes that fit your busy routine. Click the link in the video description to get 2 free months of premium membership and explore your creativity. So I've colored everything in using the colors that I chose for my palette, and then I'm going over everything with a black fine liner. I carefully went over the bottom V there, the triangle, and you can see I'm adding a little bit of line shading to some of the flowers, and it just makes them pop, adding that line shading, especially on the center. And then I chose to add a bit of that darker green, and I treated it kind of like shading anywhere where a leaf might have a little shadow where it touches another flower. So it just gives the design that extra little something to add that second green. And then I decided to add a second line below the first triangle. You can see me carefully trying to make it straight, and that is what the cover page looks like. So now it's time to cut it out. Since we are doing a Dutch door this month, I'm not ready to give up the Dutch door. I like it too much. So I always take a cutting mat, place it under just this one page, and then use a ruler and a nice sharp knife, and you're going to cut the top and bottom of the page, and then you want to take that knife and carefully go around and cut out the detail parts. And if you've got a good sharp craft knife, this is not too difficult. It's also helps so much to have a good cutting mat as well. And you can get a cutting mat at the dollar store, and it really is a helpful art supply for many different art practices. So yeah, let's clip this page in place now so we can work on the under page, the second page. I'm just placing the calendar down in the corner like I usually do, and I am using my Pigma Micron 01, so one of the very small nibs. And now you can see we've got our Dutch door with all those violets, the calendar is below, and we have some hidden space here that you don't see because of the Dutch door, and that's where I like to place my monthly goals and affirmations, and I'll sketch out a few more violets here as well. We'll just continue with our florals, and I'm just loving coloring in these violets with the brush markers. It's really fun. It feels like I'm watercolor painting almost. I'm mixing the markers. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I did have to buy, I think, 4 of these colors, but that's what I do. I just go to the stationery store that's around the corner from my apartment, and I just purchase 3 or 4 markers at a time. And in that way, it doesn't feel like too much of an expense. So I just buy per project. I'm going over everything in pen, of course, and yeah, I think that looks kind of fun. I made the month goals and focus, which is my affirmations. I made those titles quite large this month, which I think looks whimsical and cute. And then I decided I'd like to thicken up all the cursive. So that's what you see me doing here, just kind of carefully thickening. I found it easier to do this with a larger nib versus a smaller nib. But that's just my experience, and I'll come back and do the month goals later. I kind of want to keep moving on, but I will be thickening that lettering as well. Next up is our calendar page. I always like to include a little calendar just to help me plan out my month, especially my YouTube videos. So I am doing some horizontal lines. The first one, I have a little bit of a larger section and then a smaller section where I'll place the days of the week. I'm doing squares that are 3 by 3, so it's quite a small grid, and I've left a lot of space above it, as you can see. And then I don't like to use a ruler. You know this. I'm a little bit ruler lazy. And so what I do is I just pull the pen in towards my body, and I find that helps me create lines that are straight enough. They're not perfect, but they're good enough, and it has a nice whimsical look when it's all done. And I left that space up at the top because I want to use the same markers and the same color palette to create just this very doodly little vertical garden almost. So I'm drawing all these like extra simple little botanical doodles. A lot of it is just stems and leaves, or branches and leaves, and then a small floral blossom. And I know exactly which markers I want to use, and I know they all look good together. So I'm just working in all the colors that I've already chosen. The base colors for this month's design are really the purple and green with that mustard, and then I also have that very light blue and the grays. And as this comes together, I'm even thinking maybe for this one a little bit of pink would look nice, so I'll consider it. I told you guys you get color, and this is it. It's happening. It's like crazy colorful. Hands up if you are also scared of color and you just love black and white. I mean, what's wrong with black and white? Nothing, not a thing. But I'm actually really digging this layout. So I got out of my comfort zone, and I'm really enjoying the color. And I actually really like the challenge of trying to create color palettes that speak to me and that are a little more muted and aren't too bright or too Crayola, as I sometimes say, just meaning not too juvenile. So yes, going over all of this with my fine liner, and I'm going to put a little line, a little bumpy line across the bottom there, make it look like a little garden. Let's flip the page over and talk about a weekly layout. So this is the layout that I used for January. I didn't show it in last month's video, but did it later on my own. And so I'm going to use it again. It's just such a simple, clean layout. You just want to count in 8 or 9 squares, or even more, from the outside of the page. Give yourself a large margin, and then I am blocking this out. These are 8 squares apart. This is why dot grid paper is so important in a bullet journal. It really helps you keep everything even and straight without a ruler. And so I am making this nice little area where I can keep all my tasks and to-do lists. I always draw these circles. Every month I'm like, I'm gonna get a little circle trace, like a little ruler that has a circle cut out stencil, but I never do it. I never order one. So I have to just wing it, and I kind of just eyeball it. I color those in with a brush pen, and then I'm using my white Signo Uniball gel pen to do the letters or numbers. And I do Saturday and Sunday as one day. That just helps the whole spread look a little more symmetrical because you have 6 instead of 7. And if you are interested in this white gel pen, it is the best, and I will link those in the description as well. And then I've got my little calendar and my to-do list area down at the bottom, and that gives me, with this layout, it gives me two nice margins on both sides of the spread where I get to put doodles. And so for this one, I'm going to do a bit more gray. I'm grabbing my dark warm gray and I'm going to do this kind of monochrome gray and black illustration. And so I'm doing all these leaves in this dark gray, and then the flowers will be a lighter warm gray. So just a couple flowers quickly doodled, and then you just surround them with a lot of leaves, and it tends to look really pretty. And you can see I'm almost just scribbling in the petals. Like, it's very, very loose. And just one tip is to, if you've got a heavy pencil sketch, just erase it before you go in with the marker, because you won't really get a good erase after you've laid down the brush marker. At least I find you can sometimes still see the pencil through. And then, as usual, you know I love my black lines, so I'm going to outline everything with my fine liner. I'm using the 05 nib for this, so a little bit of a thicker nib gives me a nice substantial sketchy black line, and it just finishes the illustration in a really nice way. Finally, I'll finish this illustration by working in one simple leaf design that is just black pen, and that's just to help sort of ground the illustration and add a little more black, and I think that's just a nice design detail. For my to-do list and notes at the bottom, I do like having it blocked off with a bit of a border, but sometimes on a weekly spread you get so many lines that it's just like lines everywhere. So I like to do a bit of a dotted line to enclose my to-do list, and this is what the spread looks like when it's all done. I've got the flowers coming down on one side and then growing up on the other side. And let's just take a quick peek. I have my cover page, then the monthly goals, and then I have my calendar page for the month of February, my weekly layout, and I have one blank page left in here. And I just want to put a nice quote in this section. And so I had a bit of an idea that I wanted to try. And Baron Fig sent me these just basically notepads that have the same paper that's in the journal. So what I'm doing is taking one of those pieces of paper that matches, and I just did a very loose circle in pencil, and then I'm taking this earth green, this marker, and I am doing a very wiggly wobbly leaf design. And then when it's done, I'm coming in with that darker green, the Tombow brush pen. Remember, these markers, I've tried my best to list the colors in the video description. And I am coming in and doing sort of a second circle or a second wreath, and this one has a bit of a different leaf shape. And then finally, I'm taking a third color of green and I am doing a third leaf shape. This one's really, really tiny and sketchy and goes off in every which direction. So just working one color at a time and one leaf design at a time, I'm creating quite an intricate wreath quite quickly and quite easily. Okay, and then here's what makes this kind of fun. Now that I've got this wreath illustration done, what I want to do is first rip it down so that the page fits in my journal, but then I want to try ripping it in half, which I think could look kind of cool. So we're going to make a rip on the diagonal. There we go. Yeah, this illustration only took a few minutes, so if it ripped and it was just terrible, it's like, it's okay. That's what art is all about, experimenting, but I'm going to glue it in offset, and I think it's just something a bit different and a bit fun, so when I'm looking through my journal, it's like, oh yeah, I tried something there. Journals are a great place to try those things that you just have in your mind, and you're like, would that work? Would that even look good? Why not give it a go in your journal or your sketchbook? That's what this is for, a place to experiment. I know sometimes the journals just look so pretty and perfect, but really it is a place for your creative experiments. So let's take a quick peek. The cover page this month, I just loved it. And then of course I have my monthly goals and focus underneath. After that, I've got my calendar, which I'll use for my YouTube schedule. We have our little grow through what you go through quote page with the ripped paper, and then my weekly layout, which I really loved using in January and I will continue to use through February. Patrons, don't forget the planner printables are available for you over on my Patreon site, and if you're not a patron, consider joining. There is weekly bonus content and it's all available for $2 a month. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today. One course that I noticed that I thought you might be interested in is this one, How to Talk About Art, a Beginner's Guide. If you're a fan of this channel, you might just be starting your artistic and creative journey, and art is a big subject. And in this class, you sort of learn how to ask questions about art, how to think about modern art in particular, and I just thought it would be great sort of Sunday afternoon viewing, a very beginner-friendly class. Click the link in the video description to try 2 months of premium membership for free. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content like this, and I will see you soon with a new tutorial.